I wonder if that actually worked and being able to have a great thumbnail with my photo actually being on there. It absolutely sucks every time that I try to do it. Anytime before, it seems like it catch me in some type of awkward type of facial expression. So hopefully, me smiling in front of the camera and put my hand up actually end up working. What's going on, everybody? This is Travis from Carter Cow Capital, helping you fight for your financial freedom throughout the Forex market. This is another episode of Trade with Travis. Thanks to the people that are watching on TradingView, for the people that are watching on YouTube, and obviously for the people that are subscribed to all of the channels, whether if it's Trade with Travis or Expert Advisor Reviews, as we go through and get everything else situated. A couple house notes, things, and everything else. Just trying to make sure that everybody's good with it. We will um, we will be having a couple things happen. Expert Advisor Reviews will end up having um, we end up having a review that's going to end up coming out a little bit later on today, which is going to end up being on the Dark Venus EA. We're going to end up having another expert advisor review a little bit later on this week. I'm going to end up doubling up on that because I've been out 3 weeks when it comes down to that. I want to make sure we end up going with season two and make sure that we end up knocking everything else out. Looking at probably doing Maserati EA if people are interested in being able to learn a little bit more about that one. Obviously, giving my full and undivided um, opinion when it comes down to everything that goes and being able to go from there. What's going on? What's going on, CMG? Um, First off, congratulations, grad. Also, I seen that you end up getting an offer. Congratulations when it comes down to that. I don't know if anybody done said something to you about it, but I definitely wanted to make sure I end up saying congratulations when it came down to both of those things. Very awesome to be able to see that. I know that you end up working hard when it came down to that. So once again, congratulations when it came down to that. Um, but let's go ahead and jump into the charts to see what's happening with everything else that's going along with that, and kind of putting everything else together. I'm going to start off with the disclaimer, and then after that, we'll kind of jump into everything. Not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from the education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. Understand that trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money. So please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you're going to end up making money today. So with that being said, I'm going to end up kind of breeze through most of this stuff as we go through and take a look at it. We always go to take a look at the economic calendar on fxstreet.com. I'm going to place that inside of the chat box for everybody, for the people that are new, to kind of understand how I end up getting this done. Obviously, it's very simple when I kind of do this. So essentially, what happens is this. I go through and I take a look at the economic calendar to be able to understand what's going to end up happening with the market from a fundamental standpoint. And then after that, we end up taking a look at it from a chart perspective. So the fundamentals will let us know if it's going to end up being a trader's day or if it's going to end up being a fundamental day. The difference between both of those is that when you end up taking a look at the high impact news. So to give you an example, we took a look at what ended up happening yesterday because yesterday was a holiday. We only seen one red bar between one country, which means that it was a trader's day, meaning that the things on the chart is going to end up being way more important than what you end up seeing on the, what you end up seeing from overall economic news. Now today, because this is essentially the Monday of trading, even though it's Tuesday. We have a lot of stuff that's going on today. We end up having RBA meeting minutes. They end up happening a little bit earlier. We end up having composite PMIs that end up happening in Germany. We end up having the pounds end up having their manufacturing PMIs. And then after that, we're going to end up having CPI's core data from Canada. We're going to end up having President Lagarde speak from the Eurozone a little bit later on today. So if you notice, we end up having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 high impact newses, but more importantly, between 3 or more countries. So when you end up having that, the fundamentals are going to end up taking a little bit more precedence on what's going to end up happening throughout the overall day, especially between those overall pairs. So we got to pay attention to what's happening with oil. We got to pay attention because that affect what happens with what's happening with the Canadian dollar. Obviously, we got retail sales and everything else that's going on with the Canadian dollar as well. That's going to end up happening right around 1:30 today. So the beginning of the morning, it's probably not going to be as much news and as much movement, but it will be something to be able to pay attention to. Type in a Y, yes, if that makes sense, as we go through and take a look at the charts. Um, and let me know if my sound is good. I didn't ask anybody if my sound was good overall, but let me know if that makes sense as we go through and take a look at everything. So, United States dollar index Remember, United States dollar index has a correlation with United States dollar pairs. This is what's happening from a weekly perspective. The market's been in the buy zone, or if leaving from the buy zone at this particular point, we end up having a solid 11 to 12 weeks overall downside movement. And since October and since then, the market has broken a counter trend line break and started to be able to push out back up to the upside. Now, what does that mean? That means that we're starting to go from that B to C phase, now going to the C to D phase. The C to D phase is going to end up going from what this market end up making a U-turn at 12,626 all the way up to, if it keeps on moving the way that it's moving, which will end up being the deep 8-6. I'm sorry, which will end up being the 5-0 position all the way up to the 1.618, which will end up taking the market up to 13,820, 13,825. Even though it says 827, I always round it off to obviously half numbers and kind of go from there. So we know that the market is bullish. Let's keep that in mind when it comes down to that. Now, as we're taking a look at it from a daily perspective, we want to see the same thing actually happening. We want to see that the market is moving in a upside direction, or may not necessarily be moving in an upside direction, may basically be in the buy zone. So we end up going from there. I was able to make a new Osprey account. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Fully validated. Are you fully validated? Just want to make sure. If you are fully validated, then that means that everything's good to go, and I can go ahead and start sending you stuff. There we go. There we go. Cool. All right. So the neural network stuff is going to end up being in a little bit later on this week. Do you want the files now? Or do you want to wait until the neural network stuff gets in? Matter of fact, let me give you stuff now, and then after that, we can update everything else a little bit later on. Ain't no use to waiting when it comes down to that. That's first on my list today. And please send me messages if it doesn't happen. That's first on my list today. As soon as I get out of this meeting. All right. Now, with that being said, market ended up breaking from one consolidation into another consolidation. We're basically in the middle of that consolidation. Essentially, if we look at it from a stochastic perspective, we're in a no trading zone, which means that we should not be looking at being able to make a trade today. We see that the weekly and the daily are showing upside movement, but the market is not necessarily ready yet to be able to make a move overall. I'm seeing that obviously we see this long wick right here, we see this long wick right there. That means that people are actually selling more than they're actually buying at this particular point. And we see in the 2-hour that the market is in the sell zone. So even though I would love to be able to buy, this is not necessarily the greatest area to start looking at being able to buy. Let's see, once this market ends up breaking a counter trend line break to the upside, is it going to end up holding and keeping a bar above that actual position? If that does happen, then after that we have something to be able to talk about. But until then, this is more of a waiting period to see how this market is going to end up breaking out of this area and kind of holding back up and kind of going from there. It's good to see that the market ended up breaking out of this consolidation and turning that past resistance into a future support right here, 12,864. But if you look, we're back inside of that consolidation from a few weeks ago. So currently right now, no move to be able to take, but we'll kind of pay attention to that and see how the market's going to end up reacting to that a little bit later on today. Typing a while, yes, that makes sense. U.S. based pairs probably going to end up being slow today, and probably going to end up showing a little bit more to the downside than it would to the upside. Typing a while, yes, if that makes sense overall. Oil. Very simply put, Canadian dollar's been in consolidation. Oil has been in consolidation. It's been in consolidation from a long term. Been in consolidation from a long term position at $70 a barrel to 82.50, meaning that literally since November there hasn't been any great trading opportunities to be able to go from there. So here, can you teach you privately? Yeah, send me a private message. I actually end up just doing education sessions and everything else like that. If you'd like to be able to learn a little bit more about that, just send me a message. I give you a little bit more details from there, obviously, to be able to go from there. But overall, We went from this long-term consolidation from $70 a barrel with the resistance being at 82.50 to this market actually being inside of a smaller consolidation where the natural spot inside of that was at 72.25. So we got 72.25 to 82.50. Until this market breaks out of this overall area, kind of like what I've been saying since the beginning portion of November, Canadian dollar pairs off the table for me. Okay, so even though we're going to have news that may end up making the market kind of do something when it comes down to overall movement, it's not affecting what's happening with oil sales and retail sales. Hasn't necessarily been the biggest thing that makes the market move from a Canadian dollar perspective. So right now, I'm going to hold off on Canadian dollar pairs. That's going to remain to be the same overall when it comes down to that. Unfortunate because I do like trading Canadian dollar pairs. Um, when we take a look at what's happening with gold, we end up talking about this from a seller's perspective overall. We brought this back up with what was happening with the United States dollar index. We end up saying that from a weekly perspective, we've seen that this market broke a counter trend line break and it's going through now its B to C phase and starting to retrace a little bit. Now, it's never retraced all the way down to the 382, which means that the market is considered to be healthy. And it also means that we're not necessarily getting into the best area to be able to trade long term. So all of these movements will end up being short term movements overall. But if you take a look at it from a daily perspective, we can see that, okay, from a daily perspective, we can see that this market has broken to the downside of 1874. And from there, we end up saying that there was an expected move that we could see that this market go all the way back to 1803. The reason why we said 1803 was because that was the previous past resistance in this area. Past resistance in this area turned future support as this market is turning around and being able to bounce right back up. So if it does fall, I do expect that it will fall down to that area. But if we take a look at it, if you're looking at being able to sell, the market is in the buy zone. If you're looking at being able to buy, the market's in the buy zone, but the weekly's telling you that you should be selling. So really and truthfully, there's no great position to be able to get into. So it makes it kind of hard once again to be able to kind of make moves when it comes down to this one. Um, like I ended up saying, literally at the beginning of the year, I felt like March was going to end up being the time when the market was going to end up kind of making its move, uh, kind of getting a good fill out process on what's going to end up happening between January and February. And that's kind of the case right now. We truly don't have a direction as of yet. But if I'm going to say anything, I still would look at being able to sell um, more than anything else. I definitely still would be looking at being able to sell. Okay. Um, and kind of go from there. Now, with that being said, there was a counter trend line break that I said look at being able to get into. It fell all the way down to here, went back up, and now we're starting to see that this market may end up showing signs of consolidating again. Currently, right now, if you were in that trade for selling, I would say look at being able to take profit, go ahead and make a move, get out. This will be the second time that I've said that, and it kind of remains to be true. We do have a counter trend line break that has broken, but we're showing signs on the daily and on the 2 hour that the market may end up starting to push back up. So it doesn't make any sense to kind of stay in a trade that's already done made money for you, but doesn't look like it's going to end up hitting its full position no time soon. So probably end up getting away from that. Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin end up pushing up to the 25,000 area, like what we end up talking about. Um, definitely end up saying that was going to end up happening, but we also end up saying that 25,000 was going to end up being a major area that had to be broken before being able to push past 29. Why is this significant? Okay, well, let's go back. This is the time where we can be able to go back to the daily and the daily actually end up meaning a lot when it comes down to this position. Okay. Remember, Bitcoin was at a major consolidation where 29,000 was the major support. And then after that, when it fell down, it fell all the way down to right around 15,000. 15,000 was the lowest that the market was basically at for a while. That was in early October. And I think it ended up being somewhere right around the top of the year in January. Now, from there, the market ended up, before that happened, the market ended up having this large consolidation block that we end up having. I'm going to do this in purple so everybody can be able to see. Or matter of fact, I'm going to do it in blue so everybody can be able to see real quick. Market ended up breaking down from there. It ended up pushing all the way back up to this point right here, which was at 25,000. That was the highest point of that peak. And then after that, started obviously being able to consolidate inside of this area before ultimately breaking down and then pushing back up inside this area. The rule is always the same when it comes down to vortex areas. If the market breaks a resistance, it will end up going to the next resistance. We knew that as the overall case. So once again, market was in consolidation inside of that purple area. It broke inside of this resistance again. We've seen that the top of this resistance was all the way up here. So that was very easy to be able to say, oh, excuse me. That was very easy to be able to say that the market was going to end up pushing up to 25,000. The question is, how comfortable could you have been in being able to stay inside of that position? That's the first thing. Now, with that being said, this is what we need to know now. Until once $25,000 ends up getting broken, then the market's going to end up running up to 29. Well, why would it move up to 29? Because that basically means that the market is fulfilling this last time that the market was in consolidation right here. And once it breaks, it's going to break inside of a free area. All right. Now, you don't know what a free area is or a vortex area. That's essentially areas where you have low market value prices or unfair market prices. We can see right here, once it broke that 25,000 area all the way up to 29, there was no hesitation. It literally took about 4 days for the market to be able to push up from there. If this market breaks again, when it comes down to 25, you've seen the last time that it got inside of that 25 to $29,000 area, it literally only took 3 days to be able to really push inside of that area and break all the way through. So essentially, I'm telling you right now, if you're a person that loves cryptocurrency, loves being able to get in and kind of being able to find a spot, and you have not gotten in from that $18,000 area, you have not gotten in from that $24,000 area or anything else like that. Once it closes above 25,000 and it holds above that, it's probably not coming back for a long time. Okay, you've heard it here first. There it is. If it breaks above 25 and you don't get in before 25, as soon as it closes above 25, it's going up to 29. Once it gets past 29, then after that, it's going to start being able to start getting back inside of this true area where the market was, where it was 50, 60, $70,000 when it came down to a Bitcoin. So there you go. Letting everybody know. I think most of y'all know that I'm not necessarily the biggest of traders when it comes down to cryptocurrency, but we always keep an eye on what's happening with Bitcoin because that lets us know what's happening with everything else for its altcoins. So I do expect that this market is probably going to end up falling off a little bit. If it does fall off, look at the 22,310 area as another area that the market could kind of settle up at. But other than that, once it breaks above, it's gone. So keep it in mind. There it is right there. Once again, you heard it here first. Last one. Let's go. Or last two. Let's go ahead and start talking about US 30 and what's happening with everything else from there. Now, here's the problem. I've been talking about this large box of consolidation for the longest, and finally the market has broken to the downside of this overall area. But let's look at it from a daily perspective first, with the Ichimoku clouds and everything else. Not familiar with Ichimoku clouds. Essentially, what happens is that you look at this green cloud. Essentially, we're in a bullish territory, but the market has not found any momentum to be able to move. We got a lot of signs that are kind of going against what we're actually looking at being able to do for us being able to make a trade. First one is this: we're in a high volume node. Anybody that knows me, if you know that you're in a high volume node, you really only have a 33% chance of being able to win because this is basically built out consolidation. We also have an area of no momentum when you end up taking a look at what's happening with the down chain trend ribbon. The down chain trend ribbon is basically telling you that for the last 11 to 12 days that the market has been bearish, even though we are in a bullish sentiment when it comes down to this position. So what does that automatically tell you about US 30? Is this a tradable position or is it not? Corian, I'm asking you this question more than anything else. Obviously, we got other people that are watching live, and they could answer this question. But very simply put, is this a tradable area right now? Yes or no, based off of what you see with Ichimoku clouds? Okay, I'm going to answer that question for you. You said yes, but I'm actually going to end up saying that the answer is no. The reason why the answer is no is because we got a lot of conflicting things that are happening at the same time. right? We look at a weekly, we can see that the weekly is showing signs of being bullish, right? But we've seen that the sellers have basically started to reject this area. We also see that when it comes down to high volume nodes, we're basically in the highest portion of this area when it comes down to consolidation overall, right? If I zoom out, we're basically in the peak of this overall area right there. Okay, so really and truthfully, it's actually no. But if we take a look at the daily, once again, the daily is telling us that we have bearish sentiment down here, and we also see that we've been inside of this consolidation and have not been able to break. So the question is, what direction is the market going to be able to go to, or is going to end up going? Because we know that once we end up getting back into the hourly and taking a look at that, remember we talked about being able to buy when the market ended up breaking out of this overall area at 34,200. That happened. We was able to get something out of it, especially if you were paying attention to it before the market fell back inside. But as soon as the market fell back inside, it's basically going to fell down to support. And currently, right now, we're very close to that support right now as well. Okay, so we have two orders that we ended up talking about before that if it did happen, then we'll be interested in being able to get in, which would be at 33,500, getting out at 33,160. As the first order, the second order was from that 33,500 area all the way down to 32,530. The reason why we say at 32,530 is because that's the longest, that's a long-term consolidation spot, kind of like what happened, or kind of like what we're seeing with oil when it comes down to that movement. You got a large scale consolidation. You got a consolidation that's kind of in the inside of it. So maybe March may end up being the month that the market's going to end up making a movement. Who knows? We don't know that as of yet. But I will say that if you're going to end up placing in an order, and if you do decide to be able to place in an order, it's not ready yet. But if it does happen, then it will happen right around 33,500. Currently, the market is at 33,595. Obviously, anything can be able to happen today. But if I'm placing in an order, my order will not be inside of this consolidation. It'll be outside of this area, right around 33,500. And then after that, being able to make a move. Okay. So there we go. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. But essentially, that goes back to what we ended up saying before. If we break this support, we're going to fall to another support. Where's the previous support at? I'm gonna highlight this overall area right here, and I'm gonna make it I'll make it blue as well. This will be the new support that we'll fall inside of, or that previous consolidation that ended up happening from December 15th all the way to January 9th. So if it does break that area, that's where it's going. Simplest place to be able to get out. We end up being at that 33,300. I got 33,275 after looking at most of this stuff. So it might end up being something like this if we're being truly safe. Okay, so there we go. Pay attention to that a little bit more. Keep your eyes on it. Remember, if it breaks below 33,500, now you got some action. Until then, there's nothing to be able to do. Last one, NAS 100, and then after that, we'll call it a day. Hopefully, everybody ends up having a good trading day overall. Market broke inside of consolidation. We end up saying that this thing could end up falling. If it did fall, it will end up being at 12,400. Take profit positions when it came down to that. We end up being at 12,097. Now, from here, NAS 100 made the biggest move yesterday when it came down to the drop that ended up happening. We can see that overall. We have a counter trend line break that's already done happen. And from that counter trend line break, we do have some additional movement that's happening. So I do like the bearish movement overall. I do think that this market can fulfill this overall position and complete that overall de-extension. The simplest area that I ended up seeing was 12,115. And if you notice, we are inside of this a small consolidation overall. Look at the 15-minute as a way of being able to get in this order, especially if the order remains to be below 12,240. The market stays below 12,240. Then after that, you got a great sale to be able to get into overall. And we can kind of be able to pay attention to that. So I'm going to have this as an alert for me. If the market breaks and crosses down from this trend line, then I'll be interested in being able to sell. My sell order will end up being all the way down to the position where we ended up talking about before, which will end up being at 12,115, and be able to go from there. All right, give me a second, son.
So what says here? I want to play robots.
Good morning, son.
I'm not son.
Good morning.
I'm Mason.
I know. Good morning.
So I want to play robots.
Not yet, baby.
Come on.
All right. Cool. So everybody's good with that. Look at y'all hand. That's Nas 100.
Mars 100.
Yep, Nas 100.
Me 40.
Create. Here we go. Once that happens, then after that, we got an opportunity to get in. If you like what we end up doing, please make sure that you like the please make sure that you end up liking the or I'm sorry, clicking on the boost when it came down to the Discord. Make sure that obviously that you end up subscribing to what we end up doing on our pages. Obviously, when it comes down to our social media, I do like what I see with Nas 100. We keep that in mind. See what happens a little bit later on today. Hey, shh. We'll see what happens a little bit later on today. If Nas 100 ends up making a big move, probably you might end up seeing something happen with US 30. Retail sales is going to end up coming out a little bit later on for the Canadian dollar pairs that may end up affecting what's happening with the overall market as well. Like always, make sure that you end up playing your trade your plan. I see each and every one of y'all in the next video a little bit later on tomorrow. We'll start all over again. Take it easy.